Welcome, everybody. It's an absolute honor to be here, and thank you so much for your time. My name is Jeff Gray. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Gluware, and we're a software company that is focused on intelligent network automation. And what does that mean? As it relates to rolling out automation across Global 2000 enterprises, we're pioneering what is called intent engineering. And it is exactly the inverse of the term intent-based, because rather than creating a policy and then mandating in a prescriptive fashion that policy is followed, hence needing to redeploy an entire enterprise network, we're doing exactly the inverse. We go out and we ingest running configurations, we create models, we amalgamate those models, we turn them into policies, and once there's policies, there's a single source of truth, and then it's possible to overlay workflows that equal business intent. And so that's exactly what we mean by intent engineering. There's a lot of IP, there's a lot of patents, there's a lot of work, time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that's come in to this company and this intellectual property. And we're absolutely thrilled to be part of Mastercard's network transformation. And so with that, I'd like to introduce James Radford, who's the VP of Operations, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, James.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me amongst such a group of esteemed thought leaders and IT visionaries. So what we're going to go through the next couple of minutes is our journey from our traditional network management to our goal of a fully automated pipeline-based network configuration. So we have a global footprint. We have approximately 2,200 sites across the globe. Many of them are in our customer data centers, so we have limited access to the footprint, but we have full control over the devices. As you can see by the list of vendors, we have the full stack: Cisco, Checkpoint, F5 load balancers, Palo Altos, and Riverbeds for our WAN app. Such a diverse group of vendors has created a bit of a challenge from us from a management perspective. We have engineers that are very, very talented and very adept at individual technologies, Cisco, Checkpoint, Palo, but they struggle to be that quality engineer across all of those. So we have been looking for the past couple of months, years, at a solution that will help us seamlessly integrate all of those appliances and manage them holistically. You see that we have about 15,000 nodes across the globe. So it's a fairly large footprint, and it's been built over the course of the past 30 years. Some of the goals that we have, my biggest goal being in operations is audit compliance, right? We're a regulated organization. We have to meet all of the SOX compliances. So that's one of my biggest goals. And the second is to minimize outages. Any customer impacting event is unfortunate, and our president has said to us that we need to eliminate all customer impacting, not get to 99.9, eliminate all customer impacting events. So that's our goal. Some of the barriers that we've had: time and resources. The resources that we have are limited. They don't have a lot of time. They're firefighting. They're looking at new technologies, designing new implementations. They don't necessarily have time to do that automation, the full suite automation that we need them to do. Endless security patching. I'm sure all enterprises are aware. Constant scrutiny around patching. Have to reduce the patching cycle, get it done as quickly as possible, and I'll dig in a little bit later about what my goal is for patching. Excuse me. So this is some of the decision processes that I went through as we started to look at our journey forward. New skills required. As I mentioned, we have really talented engineers. They're not coders. They can write point processes and point solutions, but they don't necessarily how to build. They don't necessarily know how to build an overall solution with business logic, with fault tolerance built into their code. So that's a gap for us, and that's one of the things that we had to overcome. I mentioned earlier multi-vendor tools. There wasn't a tool available to us that was completely vendor agnostic that we could abstract the custom code needed for each of those vendors. And what I was looking for and what I found is a prepackaged automation solution that allows our engineers to use the same CLI that they've always used. They grew up working in the Cisco CLI, working in the checkpoint. Gluware allows them to use the same syntax, the same commands, and it will abstract that and build the automation that they need. So as Jeff said, this is intent-based automation. My number one goal and the thing that we're focusing on first is assurance. Do I have a full audit compliance across every device? Do I see all 15,000 plus devices? Do I know exactly what version of OS, firmware, configuration is on every single one of those devices? So that's day one goal for us, and we're almost there. The second is that OS upgrade, right? It comes with that OS patching. How do I get to quarterly and monthly patching across 15,000 devices globally? And then automation. As I said earlier, my end goal is to have full pipeline deployments across the board. So from application suite, allow the developers to build any technology, any functionality that they need. Some of the consumables that I'm looking for is that inventory and audit, as I said, software management, automation, and the network intelligence behind it. Allow the engineers to build a configuration and see what it's actually going to look like when they deploy it. So what is a view-only control that allows them to build a configuration and see what the results are before they push it out to production and cause impact. Some of the benefits that I found. The Gluware, it's an on-prem solution, which is key to us. Cloud is new for us. We're a very tightly secured organization, so security is a concern. So having the workloads on site was valuable to me. Dynamic hardware and software inventories across all Mastercard devices. So again, it's checkpoints, the Cisco's, all of the technologies are all consumed in one central repository. Config automation is huge. So setting a global standard. As I said, we have 15,000 plus devices, but they're pretty well grouped together, right? So we have a couple of design templates that we go with. So I need to be able to, from a single pane of glass, see exactly what configuration deviated, when it deviated, and why it deviated. This tool allows us to do that. Deploy OS upgrades. In our labs, we've already started the process to do OS upgrades. We can do them seamlessly. We can do automated and scheduled deployments and reboots of those appliances. It does health checks after. We can set up alerting around that also. So workflow, that's the next step in the journey. That's one of the next steps in the journey, is allowing our engineers to build complex workflows that will do dependency checks, will do configuration, API calls to our APM tools, to our ticketing systems to ensure that the changes are fully scheduled, fully approved, fully notified, our customers are aware, and we have the proper windows. So some of these are the goals that I've set forward for our organization. 99% of our global changes applied within 24 hours. This is a pretty massive undertaking for us. It's a very aggressive goal, but I know we can meet it. An example is a QoS change. We're constantly tweaking and modifying our QoS settings to get the best use case or the best customer experience for our end users. Right out of the box, I want to do monthly or quarterly patching. We haven't been able to do that in the past, just because of the number of headcount that was required to deploy configurations to the devices. So right out of the box, we'll be able to do quarterly patching, and my goal is to go to a monthly patching cycle. I know that'll make my corporate security and information security teams very happy to hear. So that's goal. Defect rate, 0%. No change implementation errors. Because it's an automated solution, because it has workflow built behind it, because I can set peer reviews and other things in the workflow, I can guarantee my CTO that we'll have zero defects. Reduce configuration drift to 99.9%. So why did I say 99.9 instead of 100%? Because we still have use cases where our customers demand or require a very specific configuration for a short period of time. Either they couldn't meet our needs for scheduling because we couldn't refresh the device fast enough. So that's why I left that 0.1% out there. And the little guy with his feet up on the desk, hopefully that's me in a couple of years. Zero human implementation interaction. So we'll still have the workflow, we'll still have the schedule changes, we'll still have the paperwork, if you will, up front, but I don't need my engineers, I don't want my engineers doing menial, let me back up, monotonous tasks, they're not menial. I want them focusing on direction, the next appliance, the next technology, not applying QoS changes to 15,000 devices. So where are we at on the journey? So I have three major almost disparate networks. Our development network, that consists of development stage, performance testing, quality assurance, all of that. It's been fully deployed in that environment, and we're currently monitoring 130 devices. Production is we're working to plan. We have the hope to have it all completed by the end of June. Our production environment is our customer facility. That's your card processing. If you pay from your Google phone or from your phone or from your Apple phone, that's that environment. And then our corporate environment. Our corporate environment's a little probably not unique, but it's unique to us because it's a completely isolated environment from our production environment. So we treat it a little bit differently. It has different technologies. So that's going to plan as also. We have 150 sites globally, so that footprint continues to grow. And it's been a challenge for us to manage those because they tend to have a little less priority than the money-making production environments. So this is some of the drivers behind my decisioning. We have a lot of manual processes. I have a lot of, like as I said, really intelligent engineers who built purpose-based scripting, but many times it was still manual. So this allows us to fully automate the solutions. Align with the strategic, understand time to value requirement, right? So I needed a product that I could put in place and hit the ground running and not need to retrain a bunch of engineers or build a lot of infrastructure globally to maintain. So this product allowed me to do that. It's declarative. It had to be declarative. That was the number one priority for me from picking a tool, and no coding required. I can't have my top engineers taking time to learn Python or Ruby or some other language because their focus is engineering, is building the network to the resiliency that I need it to be. Now that's not to say that we won't have time for them to retrain. Hopefully this gives them the ability, if so desired, to retrain and learn and develop some automation skills, so they have that. Time to value was really important to me, and reducing human error. That was the number one. That was one of the highest priorities, was reducing human error. We have a small percentage, but it's still difficult to go to your customer and say, I implemented 45,000 changes last month. I messed up yours, sorry, right? So they still felt the pain. They didn't care that it was 0.0001%. And then true cost, right? The depth of capability, the care and feeding, and the risk. If I built my own solution, then I have to maintain that solution forever. So I needed something that was off the shelf, that didn't need to be customized, that didn't need to be massively configured, and that I could get vendor support for new features and functionality. So that's all I really have. I'm open to questions if anyone has any questions about why we chose the product or the direction that we're planning to go.
Thank you. Quick question, without naming what you used before, could you describe the scale of the change?
So the implementation scale is actually not terrible. So we had disparate tools. We had tools for each of the different vendors effectively. This tool allows you to consume all of those configurations and run them in parallel. So I can actually run them side by side for a period of time if I need to, just to ensure that I have the proper data, that I have the analytics around the data. So we started implementing about 8 weeks ago. The development environment is already done, and like I said, we'll have production done by the end of next month. So it's been pretty rapid succession to adopt it.
Hi. Hello? Okay. Thanks for presenting. Good story here. Appreciate hearing that. Did this come with any out-of-the-box benefits in terms of payment card industry standards, compliance from that standpoint?
So that was one of the things that we spent the largest portion of time doing is validating that we had the right RBAC controls in place, that the data at rest was secured. So yes, it doesn't have any proprietary payment restrictions or safeguards, but it meets the PCI standards that we set forth. And Mastercard's actually on the PCI board, so we actually follow stricter standards than are governed. Any additional questions? Okay. Oh.
As far as the budgetary process, did you sort of align your actions and your solutions based on a pre-approved budget, or was this a sort of a remediation activity?
It was more of a remediation. I was actually fortunate that I had pretty much an open checkbook to find a solution that worked for us. The goal was to eliminate customer impacting incidents and take full control over the network that we have. So budget was less of a concern for me, which is pretty rare, but I was fortunate in that fashion. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, James, quick question. So are there other things that now, since you're kind of moving down into like this kind of automated network infrastructure, which actually very few have done? So one, congratulations. But are there kind of other things that you weren't anticipating that all of a sudden you're getting? And the one thing I'm kind of thinking about, and we've talked about this at ONUG, is that we don't really have open systems in kind of the networking space anymore. So we really look for top-down open. So if you can actually have configurations that get pushed down, then does that give you a degree of freedom in kind of swapping out particular gear?
It does actually give us a great deal of freedom because we can actually do in-place upgrades side by side, do A/B deployments with this configuration where we didn't have that opportunity in the past. And the number one thing that I'm going to gain is the visibility into the infrastructure, its capacity, and its health. Those were items that were missing, and now with the Gluware and some other functions that we've gained from this implementation, I actually have a much better view into the overall health of the network.
So a lot of the things that you have done here from a certain perspective are kind of being done for the first time. There is not so much of a rule book. You're going to have to piece it together. So, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you would do differently if you were to do them again, right? So if you were to rewind 6 months, a year, or 3 years to the beginning of this project, even though it was a successful project, what is one or two things that if you were to do them again, you would do them differently, and why?
I think probably the biggest thing would be our approach on physical versus virtual hardware. We stayed completely physical, and I would probably reconsider that. With the flexibility that the tool gives us to do that fully baked automation, I would probably change that. I would have a better mixture. But again, security is key to us, so it was a much easier sell to my CTO and to the president to say, we're going to continue down the secure path that we've already had and not introduce virtual, but that would be probably my biggest change. The project itself is actually only 8 to 12 weeks. Well, there was a lot of negotiation about whether we were buying the product or not, but the actual implementation has only been going on for 8 to 10 weeks. So it's actually pretty, it's still in its infancy, but we're very, very far along.